Alright guys, today we have more PlayStation news and information to go over and talk about. We have multiple topics we're covering in this video, so be sure to leave it a like to help it out, and make sure you hit the subscribe button as well if you're new to the channel. But we're starting here talking about a very interesting piece of information that does get me pretty excited because it seems that we have a PlayStation executive potentially teasing some major third-party deals that are in place with PlayStation, and he could even be hinting at more third-party exclusive games that will be coming in the future. Now, recently, Herman Hulst, he is the head of PlayStation Studios. He talked about how PlayStation has over 25 exclusives currently in development for the PlayStation 5 and just the PlayStation ecosystem in general. And so we have Christian Svensson, he is the head of global third-party relations at PlayStation, commenting on this and chiming in, and he says, just wait until you see what's coming from our third-party partners too. Now, I don't want to sit here and say that he's confirming a bunch of third-party PlayStation exclusives because that's not necessarily what he's doing here, but we do have to, look at the context. He's commenting on this after the fact that Sony talks about 25 titles in development for the PlayStation 5. I have to imagine he is referencing potentially some third-party exclusivity deals. I mean, we have to look at the current situation when it comes to Sony versus Microsoft and how we have both of these corporations really trying to ramp up just the amount of games and the type of quality that these games are going to be offering. I mean, we saw Microsoft purchase Bethesda. To me, it's kind of obvious that Sony's going to be working very hard to try to strike even more third-party deals, probably more so than ever before, to kind of combat this big, acquisition that Microsoft made. So we have confirmation from Herman Hulst that 25 exclusives are in development, which, as I said before, is incredible. But we also have the head of global third-party relations at PlayStation teasing even more third-party games. Now, he could just be talking about third-party multi-platform games here, and even if he is, he at the very least is insinuating that PlayStation has some pretty big deals in place. We know that that's something Sony really likes to do. So yeah, it sounds like there is a lot going on behind the scenes, a lot of stuff that we still just don't know about yet, and it's going to be very exciting when we learn about it. But we're going to move on from that and talk about Insomniac Games once again, because it seems that they may actually end up returning to Sunset Overdrive to make another title. So Insomniac Games released Xbox console exclusive Sunset Overdrive long before it became a part of Sony Interactive Entertainment, but that hasn't stopped fans from hoping the IP isn't shelved for good. The good news is Insomniac has said that it has a, quote, never say never, unquote, approach to its IPs. The bad news is there's nothing set in stone at the present. I mean, never say never is my approach. This is what creative director Marcus Smith told GQ when asked if there was any life left in the Sunset Overdrive IP. Obviously, we're part of Sony now, but we own the IP, and so there's nothing really stopping us other than we have a lot of really exciting things in our future. When directly asked if Insomniac would like to make a sequel to Sunset Overdrive, Smith said he personally would. I think there are a lot of stories that can be told in that universe, and I would love to return to it, he added. I had a lot of fun making that game. So this is important to cover for a few reasons. First of all, we had like a leaked list of games that came out not too long ago, and on that leaked list of PlayStation games, we had a Sunset Overdrive remaster as well as a sequel titled Sunset Overdrive Apocalypse or something like that. And I told you guys that this list is probably not true. I mean, it seems like it could just be a good guess by somebody, but now we have confirmation from Insomniac directly that they're currently not doing anything with Sunset Overdrive. But the really good news here is that there's apparently nothing stopping them. I mean, you would have to imagine if Sony pretty much said you're not making Sunset Overdrive or you're not allowed to, they wouldn't be talking in this way, right? This developer from Insomniac would pretty much be saying we have no plans for anything in the future, but he's saying never say never, and he's also expressing the fact that he loved making the first game and that he would totally be open to making another one. So who knows, maybe in the future we could end up seeing a Sunset Overdrive sequel that becomes a PlayStation 5 exclusive, right? That would certainly be an interesting turn of events. And considering that Sunset Overdrive released to really good critical reception, I think there's actually a decent amount of incentive here for Insomniac Games, maybe when they're finished with the next Spider-Man game to potentially do something with Sunset Overdrive. We know that Sony wants to have both, critical and commercial hits, and I feel like Sunset Overdrive 2 would have a lot of momentum because this time it's going to be a PlayStation exclusive after being an Xbox exclusive originally, and it has a good chance of getting great critical reception. So seems like it's something that could actually happen in the future. So we'll have to wait and see. But continuing on here, we're talking about another PlayStation 5 exclusive. We have a pretty significant update from Housemarque when it comes to Returnal and a save system. This is something that a lot of players have still been asking for. And so it says here, a mid-run Returnal save system is one of the most requested features from players at the moment. While the roguelike saves certain permanent unlocks between runs, there's no way to power off your PS5 or Switch games in the middle of a cycle without it restarting. In an interview with Axios Gaming, Housemarque's marketing director, Michael Havery, confirmed that the feature is, quote, something that we're very actively trying to get out as soon as we can, unquote. Housemarque wanted players to feel like Returnal was challenging with a, quote, easy to learn but hard to master, unquote, mentality. Part of the game's design to achieve this was the inability to save in the middle of a run. Many players complained about this, especially those that felt they didn't have enough time to complete a single lengthy run in one sitting. Having listened to the feedback, Havery said, "We understand that there are some systems in place that are currently a hindering factor. As such, the team is trying to find a solution as soon as possible. What that solution will be remains to be seen. The team is trying to come up with a solution, but they just don't know exactly what it is because they feel like there's a lot of different people looking for different things. They need a solution that suits as many people as possible. Some players have suggested a save file system where the game forces players to quit their run when they save. When that save is reloaded, the players resume their run, the save file is deleted. This would maintain the integrity of the game while providing a solution for those who can't play for 3 to 5 hours at a time. However, it still doesn't resolve the issue of save scumming or uploading the save to cloud to recover later should the run end in disaster." So I thought that this was really important to go over because this is a really, critical thing, I think, here when it comes to Returnal and the future of this game, where Housemarque is responding and they're continuing to talk about this, and they're saying here that they are very actively trying to figure something out, but they have to be very careful about what they choose to do because they don't want to ruin, the integrity of the game that they made. And I'm very much a believer in the developer's vision is the most important thing, and that needs to remain as, genuine as possible. So if Housemarque were to come out here and say, we're not putting a save system in, period, end of discussion, I'd be totally okay with that. They seem like they want to do something, and I'm okay with that as well, obviously, but it might take a little bit longer than some people were anticipating because, as you can tell, there's just not really a simple solution to this. So, we'll have to wait and see, but they're just letting the player base know that they are very actively working on something and trying to get it out. So, I know that there's some people who feel that Housemarque shouldn't do a save system, but the way I see it is they're the developers, they know what's best, and if they want to do a save system of some sort, then I'm not opposed to that. Just like I said, if they don't, I'm fine with that as well. But just keeping you guys updated with the latest with Returnal. But continuing on here, I want to talk about Mark Cerny, because Mark Cerny recently talked about the PlayStation 5 architecture and how developers have been responding to it now that this console has been out for 6 months officially. And we did talk about this again in that hour-and-a-half long live stream, but I wanted to be sure to give it its own time in a shorter video here because not everybody catches the live streams. So the original PlayStation was born out of Sony listening to developers and creating a platform that was as much for the creators as it was for the players. When doing research and development for the PS5, Sony did the same thing, building the optimal console for developers to work with. And system architect Mark Cerny says that the PS5 has seen miraculously little pushback from developers as a result. Speaking with Wired, looking back at the first 6 months of the PS5, Cerny talked about how he intentionally seeks out those with strong opinions when he makes his round to developers, working with the console. This allows the team at PlayStation to focus on best addressing the problems and bottlenecks in the development pipeline at the console level. The conversations can be very contentious, Cerny said. I actively seek out the people who will have strong opinions, who clearly lay out all of the issues they are having with the hardware, so that we can get busy thinking about how we can address those in the future. Wired notes that the PS3 had a notoriously difficult graphics pipeline, and that complaints around the PS4 stemmed from a less powerful CPU than developers hoped for. But according to Mark Cerny, the PS5 is seeing, quote, miraculously little pushback, unquote, from developers in terms of major contention points that bottleneck development. So I wanted to make sure to just briefly talk about this to let everybody know that this is something we have discussed at length in the past, but now we're actually seeing it in play. You know, I feel like back when we talked about the PS5 before it released, and how it was very obviously a console that was developed with zero bottlenecks in mind, and to make the development pipeline as streamlined as possible and as simplified as possible and as easy as possible. A lot of people were like, well, we're gonna have to wait to see it. And now the console's out for 6 months, and we have Mark Cerny kind of reporting to us that, look, the PS5 is pretty much having no issues. It seems that developers really do love this console, and it's not just about the power, it's not just about the features ultimately, right? I mean, these are all things that do matter. We couldn't call it a next-gen console if it wasn't very powerful and very feature-packed and very capable. These are all things that you know you're going to get, but this is something that I feel like needs to be discussed a little bit more frequently, which is, you know, when you're talking about creators making a game for a console, if it's not easy to develop for, if it's a headache for them, if it's just, you know, to the point where it's kind of an annoyance for them, that's ultimately going to be bad for us. You know, what's bad for the developers is going to be bad for the player. And I'm just glad that Sony has this philosophy, or Mark Cerny, I should say, when he was creating the PS5, that like, what's good for the developers is going to be good for the game, and that's going to be good for the player. You see, that makes perfect sense, and that's exactly how it should be. So just wanted to kind of report this to you guys and let you know what Mark Cerny is saying. But we're going to close out this video just briefly talking about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So Insomniac Games' Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is launching on the PS5 next month, and with the game having gone gold now, we've got an idea of the file size and the preload date for you to feast your eyes on. So according to the Twitter account PlayStation Game Size, the Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart file size clocks in at 42 gigabytes. Although this is without any day one patch applied, the preload date meanwhile is locked in for June 4th. So I just wanted to let you guys know, if you're looking forward to playing Rift Apart on your PS5, it's going to be about 42 gigabytes, but there will undoubtedly be a day one patch that will add on to that. We have no idea how large that patch could be. It could be 2 gigabytes, it could be 15 gigabytes. We really won't know until we get there, but you can preload the game on your PS5 starting on June 4th. So there you go. That's everything I have for you guys. I hope you did enjoy the video. I hope you did find it informative. Leave your thoughts down below. Leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.